Page 46 of Mice and Men, Chapter 3. Show me what? The young man turned to the back of the magazine, put it down on the table, and pointed with his finger. Right there, read that. Slim bent over it. Go on, said the young man. Read it out loud. Dear editor, Slim read slowly. I read your mag for 6 years, and I think it is best on the market. I like stories by Peter Rand. I think he's a wingding. Give us more like the Dark Rider. I don't write many letters. Just thought I would tell you I think your mag is the best dime's worth I ever spent. So Dark Rider, comic book series in the 1930s, and I think was bought out by DC in the 1940s or 50s. Like if you've seen the movie Ghost Rider, that's a Dark Rider comic. Slim looked up questioningly. What you want me to read that for? Whit said. Go on, read the name at the bottom. Slim read. Yours of success, William Tenner. He glanced up at Whit again. What do you want me to read that for? Whit closed the magazine impressively. Don't you remember Bill Tenner? Worked here about 3 months ago? Slim thought. Little guy, he asked. Drove a cultivator? That's him. That's the guy. You think he's the guy who wrote this letter? I know it. Bill and me was in here one day. Bill had one of them books just come. He was looking in it and he says, I wrote a letter. Wonder if they put it in the book. But it wasn't there. Bill says, maybe they're saving it for later. And that's just what they done. There it is. Guess you're right, said Slim. Got it right in the book. George held out his hand for the magazine. Let's look at it. Whit found the place again, but he did not surrender his hold on it. He pointed out the letter with his forefinger, and then he went to his box shelf and laid the magazine carefully in. I wonder if Bill's seen it, he said. Bill and me worked in that patch of field peas, run cultivators, both of us. Bill was a hell of a nice fella. During the conversation, Carlson had refused to be drawn in. He continued to look down at the old dog. Candy watched him uneasily. At last, Carlson said, if you want me to, I'll pull the old devil out of his misery right now and get it over with. Ain't nothing left for him. Can't eat, can't see, can't even walk without hurting. Candy said hopefully, you ain't got no gun. The hell I ain't. Got a Luger. It won't hurt him none at all. Candy said, maybe tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow. So what you don't know is now it seems like, yeah, of course, everyone has a gun. In 1930, no one had guns. People that had ranches might have a shotgun for like coyotes or something, or maybe a 30-06 for hunting. That's it. People didn't have guns, especially pistols. No one had pistols. So now when everybody's like, oh yeah, I've got 25 AK-47 or AR-15s and my daughter has the pink one, and my son has the purple one, and yada, yada, and we have 5,000 rounds of 223. Like, oh, yeah, me too. I did too. No one used to do that until like the early 90s. Wasn't even possible to have military-grade weapons. So that's a weird phenomenon that's just recent. So for him to have a pistol on a ranch is a big deal. Especially a German pistol. Candy said, hopefully, oh, ain't got no good. Maybe tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow. I don't see no reason for it, said Carlson. Went to his bunk, pulled his bag from underneath it, and took out a Luger pistol. Let's get it over with, he said. We can't sleep with him stinking around in here. He put the pistol in his hip pocket. Candy looked a long time at Slim to try to find some reversal, and Slim gave him none. At last, Candy said softly and hopelessly, all right, take him. He did not look down at the dog at all. He lay back on his bunk and crossed his arms behind his head and stared at the ceiling. From his pocket, Carlson took a little leather thong. He stooped over and tied it around the old dog's neck. All the men except Candy watched him. Come, boy. Come on, boy, he said gently. And he said apologetically to Candy, he won't even feel it. Candy did not move nor answer him. He twitched the thong. Come on, boy. The old dog got slowly and stiffly to his feet and followed the gently pulling leash. Slim said, Carlson? Yeah, you know what to do. What you mean, Slim? Take a shovel, said Slim shortly. Oh, sure, I get you. He led the dog out into the darkness. George followed to the door and shut the door and set the latch gently in its place. Candy lay rigidly on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Slim said loudly, One of my lead mules got a bad hoof. Gotta get some tar on it. His voice trailed off. He was silent outside. Carlson's footsteps died away. The silence came into the room, and the silence lasted. George chuckled. I bet Lenny's right out there in the barn with the pup. He won't want to come in here no more now he's got a pup, Slim said. Candy, you can have any one of them pups you want. Candy did not answer. The silence fell on the room again. It came out of the night and invaded the room. George said, Anybody like to play a little euchre? I'll play out with you, said Whit. They took places opposite each other at the table under the light, but George did not shuffle the cards. He rippled the edge of the deck nervously, and the little snapping noise drew the eyes of all men in the room, so that he stopped doing it. The silence fell on the room again. A minute passed, and another minute. Candy lay still, staring at the ceiling. Slim gazed at him for a moment, and then looked down at his hands. He subdued one hand with the other, and held it down. There came a little gnawing sound from under the floor, and all the men looked down toward it gratefully. Only Candy continued to stare at the ceiling. Sounds like there's a rat under there, said George. We ought to get a trap down there. Whit broke out. What the hell's taking him so long? Lay out some cards, why don't you? We ain't going to get no euchre played this way. So that euchre word, it's a card game, obviously, but it's also a play on Catholics. When they take communion, it's called the Holy Eucharist. So we had that Catholic thing yesterday when he was talking like as if in confession. So, and my thought was, this is right about the time when lots of brown immigrants started kind of taking over migratory farm work. And then that Bracero program from the American government encouraged it with the bridges to between Mexico and Texas and New Mexico and Texas and Arizona and Texas and California and California and Mexico. I mean, all the bridges. That maybe Steinbeck's kind of throwing in like that the brown immigrants are also Catholics. Because remember in 1930s, the Ku Klux Klan, the number 2 on their hit parade after black people were Catholics. I don't know if I'm just talking to myself here, but hopefully you're learning something. George brought the cards together tightly and studied the backs of them. The silence was in the room again. A shot sounded in the distance. The men looked quickly at the old man. Every head turned toward him. For a moment, he continued to stare at the ceiling. Then he rolled slowly over and faced the wall and lay silent. George shuffled the cards noisily and dealt them. Whit drew a scoring board to him and set the pegs to start. Whit said, I guess you guys really come here to work. How do you mean? George asked. Whit laughed. Well, you come on a Friday. You get 2 days to work till Sunday. I don't see how you figure, said George. Whit laughed again. You do if you've been around these big ranches much. Guys that wants to look over a ranch comes in Saturday afternoon. He gets Saturday night supper and 3 meals on Sunday, and he could quit Monday morning after breakfast without turning his hand. But you come to work Friday noon. You got to put in a day and a half, no matter how you figure. George looked at him levelly. We're going to stick around a while, he said. Me and Lenny's going to roll up a steak. The door opened quietly, and the stable buck put in his head, a lean Negro head. We don't use that word anymore. Lined with pain, the eyes patient. Mr. Slim? Slim took his eyes from old Candy. Huh? Oh, hello, Crooks. What's the matter? You told me to warm up tar for that mule's foot. I got it warm. Oh, sure, Crooks. I'll come right out and put it on. I can do it if you want, Mr. Slim. No, I'll come do it myself. He stood up. Crooks said, Mr. Slim? Yeah? That big new guy's messing around with your pups out in the barn. Well, he ain't do no harm. I give him one of them pups. Just thought I'd tell you, said Crooks. He's taking them out the nest and handling them. That won't do them no good. He won't hurt them, said Slim. I'll come along with you now. George looked up. If that crazy bastard's fooling around too much, just kick him out, Slim. So isn't that kind of dangerous, like messing around with a puppy that's still nursing? Like, what if the mom like suddenly doesn't like the smell or something? That's a little dangerous. Like you don't take a bird out of the nest. Slim followed the stable buck out of the room. George dealt and Whit picked up his cards and examined them. Seen the new kid yet? He asked. What kid? George asked. Why, Curly's new wife. Yeah, seen her. Well, ain't she a Lulu? I ain't seen her that much, or seen that much of her, said George. Whit laid down his cards impressively. Well, stick around, keep your eyes open. You'll see plenty. She ain't concealing nothing. I never seen nobody like her. She got the eye going all the time on everybody. I bet she even gives the stable buck the eye. I don't know what the hell she wants, George asked casually. Been any trouble since she got here? It was obvious that Whit was not interested in his cards. He laid his hand down and George scooped it in. George laid out his deliberate solitaire hand. 7 cards, 6 on top, 5 on top of those. Whit said, I see what you mean. No, they ain't been nothing yet. Curly's got yellow jackets in his drawers, but that's all so far. Every time the guys is around, she shows up. She's looking for Curly, or she thought she left something laying around and she's looking for it. Seems like she can't keep away from guys, and Curly's pants is just crawling with ants. But they ain't nothing come of it yet. Notice who do we stereotype for being drama? Girls. Yeah, we don't say drama kings, do we? Yeah, and girls have to live with that moniker basically their entire lives. But here we got a ranch full of dudes, and all they're doing is stirring up drama. I mean, this girl could be the nicest girl ever. And like, they're just thinking, oh, she looked at me funny, so she obviously wants me. Like, really? Or like, oh, that gay guy obviously wants me because he happened to look in my direction. Like, it's so dumb. I'm probably offending a lot of people, sorry. George said, she's going to make a mess. They're going to be a bad mess about her. She's a jailbait, all set on the trigger. That Curly got his work cut out for him. Ranch with a bunch of guys on it ain't no place for a girl, especially like her. Whit said, if you got ideas, you ought to come in town with us guys tomorrow night. Why? What are you doing? Just the usual thing. We go into old Sally's place. Hell of a nice place. Old Sally's a laugh, always cracking jokes. Like she says when we come up on the front porch last Saturday night. Susie opens the door and then she yells over her shoulder, get your coats on, girls. Here comes the sheriff. She never talks dirty neither. Got 5 girls there. What's it set you back? George asked. 2.5. You can get a shot for 2 bits. Susie's got nice chairs to set in too. If a guy don't want a flop, make Kool-Aid. Why, he can just sit in the chairs and have a couple or 3 shots and pass the time of day. And Susie don't give a damn. She ain't rushing guys through and kicking them out if they don't want a flop. So a couple things. $2.50 for a flop. So like Sonny and Maurice said to Holden, $10 a throw, $15 all night. A flop is a throw. This is a brothel we're talking about. And when they say 2 bits for a shot, how much money is 2 bits? Nobody? 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, $1. 2 bits is 25 cents. So 25 cents for a shot of alcohol. And then $2.50 for having a special friend for a little while. Might go in and look the joint over, said George. Sure, come along. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Her cracking jokes all the time. Like she says one time, she says, I've knew people, if they got a rag rug on the floor and a Cupid doll lamp on the phonograph, they think they're running a parlor house. That's Clara's house she's talking about. And Susie says, I know what you boys want. She says, my girls is clean. She says, and there ain't no water in my whiskey. She says, if any of you guys want to look at a Cupid doll lamp and take your own chance getting burned, why, you know where to go. And she says, there's guys around here walking bow-legged because they like to look at a Cupid doll lamp. So she's saying that the competing brothel, Clara's, oddly the same name as Lenny's aunt, that all she has is window dressing girls. Like, they look good, but they're actually diseased. And so the bow-legged guy is because he was with a Clara brothel dirty woman, another horrible stereotype and a slut-shaming stereotype. And they're bow-legged because they have syphilis or chlamydia or whatever. Get it? Everybody get that? Herpes is like that. And HIV. But manageable. It doesn't kill you anymore. You just have to... HIV. And syphilis has been pretty much eradicated from Earth because of antibiotics. It didn't mutate like COVID does. George asked, Clara runs the other house, huh? Yeah, said Whit. We don't never go there. Clara gets $3 at crack and 35 cents a shot, and she don't crack no jokes. But Susie's place is clean, and she got nice chairs. Don't let no goo-goos in neither. I don't know what goo-goo is. I'm assuming that's probably a racial slur. Me and Lenny's rolling up a steak, said George. I might go in and set and have a shot, but I ain't putting out no 2.5. Well, a guy gotta have some fun sometime, said Whit. The door opened and Lenny and Carlson came in together. Lenny crept to his bunk and sat down, trying not to attract attention. Oh, we know what that means. Carlson reached under his bunk and brought out his bag. He didn't look at old Candy, who still faced the wall. Carlson found a little cleaning rod in the bag and can of oil. He laid them on his bed and then brought out the pistol, took out the magazine, and snapped the loaded shell from the chamber. Then he fell to cleaning the barrel with the little rod. When the ejector snapped, Candy turned over and looked for a moment at the gun before he turned back to the wall again. Carlson said casually, Curly been in yet? No, said Whit. What's eating on Curly? Carlson squinted down the barrel of his gun. Looking for his old lady. I seen him going round and round outside, Whit said sarcastically. He spends half his time looking for her, and the rest of his time she's looking for him. Curly burst into the room excitedly. Any of you guys see my wife? He demanded. She ain't been in here, said Whit. Curly looked threateningly about the room. Where the hell's Slim? Went out in the barn, said George. He was going to put some tar on a split hoof. Curly's shoulders dropped and squared. How long ago he'd go? 5-10 minutes. Curly jumped out the door and banged it after him. Whit stood up. I guess maybe I'd like to see this, he said. Curly's just spoiling, or he wouldn't start for Slim. And Curly's handy, goddamn handy. Got in the finals for the Golden Gloves, boxing. He got newspaper clippings about it, he considered. But just the same, you better leave Slim alone. Nobody don't know what Slim can do. Thinks Slim's with his wife, don't he? Said George. Looks like it, Whit said. Course Slim ain't. Least I don't think Slim is. But I like to see the fuss if it comes off. Come on, let's go, George said. I'm staying right here. I don't want to get mixed up in nothing. Lenny and me got to make a steak. Carlson finished the cleaning of the gun and put it in the bag and pushed the bag under his bunk. I guess I'll go out and look her over, he said. Old Candy lay still, and Lenny from his bunk watched George cautiously. When Whit and Carlson were gone and the door closed after them, George turned to Lenny. What you got on your mind? I ain't done nothing, George. Slim says I better not pet them pups so much for a while. Slim says it ain't good for them, so I come right in. I've been good, George. I could have told you that, said George. Well, I wasn't hurting him none. I just had mine in my lap petting it, George asked. Did you see Slim out in the barn? Sure I did. He told me I better not pet that pup no more. Did you see that girl? You mean Curly's girl? Yeah. Did she come in the barn? No. Anyways, I never seen her. You never seen Slim talking to her? Uh-uh. She ain't been in the barn. Okay, said George. I guess them guys ain't gonna see no fight. If there's any fighting, Lenny, you keep out of it. I don't want no fights, said Lenny. He got up from his bunk and sat down at the table across from George. Almost automatically, George shuffled the cards and laid out a solitaire hand. He used a deliberate, thoughtful slowness. Lenny reached for a face card and studied it, then turned it upside down and studied it. Both ends the same? He said. George, why is it both ends the same? I don't know, said George. That's just the way they make 'em. What was Slim doing in the barn when you seen him? Slim? Sure, you seen him in the barn, and he told you not to pet the pup so much? Oh, yeah, he had a can of tar and a paintbrush. I don't know what for. You sure that girl didn't come in like she come in here today? No, she never come. George sighed. You give me a good whorehouse every time, he said. A guy can go in and get drunk and get everything out of his system all at once, and no messes, and he knows how much it's going to set him back. These here jailbaits is just set on the trigger of the hooskow. Hooskow is like a boomer way of saying jail. And that's a horrible place to stop, but we're stopping.